thank you all for joining. We're all going to talk today about how DealMaker is making 10x productivity with an AI first model. They've got a lot of content about how they're doing this to share, so I'm excited about it. So why don't we jump into the first slide? So maybe I'll just introduce myself and then I'll kick it off over to Kara and G. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Builder.io. So if you heard about us from Builder or your Builder user, they're going to be talking about how they use Builder and a variety of other practices to do some really amazing work. Kara, you want to jump in and introduce yourself too?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Kara. I am the VP of People at DealMaker. G and I are really excited to be here. It's a real honor. And yeah, I'll pass it over to G next.
Thanks, Cara. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Geronimo. Everyone calls me G, and I'm CTO here at DealMaker. So I oversee the whole technology data side of the company, and I'm super excited to meet you all and talk a bit about how exciting it is to use Builder for at least two big areas of our organization.
Amazing. Then Kara, G, you want to kick us off on the agenda and jump into the main substance of our topic?
Yeah, I mean, I won't read out the screen. I think we're taking you through the process of what G and I co-own at DealMaker, which is effectively what we call our innovation rock, right? Which is the exercise to bring the entire organization, there's about 140 of us, through this AI revolution transformation that's happening. So we're actually going to give you the inside scoop on how we've been bringing the team along, how we're increasing our AI literacy, and how we are getting to create a bunch of citizen developers within DealMaker. So we're going to walk you through that entire process. That's generally 1 through 6. We're going to give you as much inside scoop as possible. And I'm going to ask G to introduce who DealMaker is first.
Yeah, thank you. So, well, DealMaker is a Toronto-based company, and Toronto and New York. So, Zidane, I see a Toronto friend in the chat, and we love founders, as many of these logos that you see on the screen. They are companies led and operated by a group of people that need money and need money to run their business, to execute on their visions, and they come to us. We help them raise money online, and we help companies of all different stages, from early stage startups to growth stage established brands like Picasso, and we have companies all over the U.S. mainly. Our team is based across Canada, US, and Colombia, and our headquarters are in New York currently. So if you have any questions about the company, we can leave that to the end. We want to focus on how we use Builder to change our company.
Amazing. Thanks, G. So, it's a really interesting moment in time to be a leader in an organization, especially one like Dealmaker's been around for around 8 years. Our products has some good depth to it, but we're also going through this huge transformation. And what G and I have realized through this massive transformation that's happening in the world is like everyone can become a citizen developer now. Like everyone can build and deploy things. And there's a ton of things that are shifting. And it's our job to make sure that the team is ready, that our processes are ready, that we're buying the right tooling, and also that we are thinking about, what are the processes that we need to retool, and even in our internal organization, never mind the things that actually hit, what our customers use, what goes out into our product. So it's very important that we keep in mind all of these shifts that are happening. The big thing that we see happening now is this shift in the buy versus build equation. So it used to be, like I've got this business problem that I need to solve. I'll scan the market. I'll go out to procurement. I'll figure out the best thing I can, and then I buy the tool. right? That is shifting. It is shifting to citizen developers. People within our organization that are non-technical people can actually build their own solution. And with the help with tools like Builder, it's not just build a thing that kind of stays in a silo, but actually can be used en masse, potentially even be put into production. And so it's shifting from what used to be a buy versus build to now be a build it yourself as a citizen developer, then learn what you need, and then decide if you want to keep what you build or if you have to buy something external. And so, systems like Builder, etc., allow us to do these like what we call a lightweight AI assisted version, right? So build a thing, and I'm going to show you an example of something that I built myself, and I'm a non-technical person. And it's not only shifting it into like who can build, but also who gets to make strategic decisions about buying software. So it might not be obvious to a lot of people, but what G and I see is this massive shift in the way software is built, decided, deployed across an organization. And it's something that we're very conscious of when we go to talk to the team and think about like how do we get our team ready for this fundamental shift. So I'll pass it to G next to talk about how the world thinks about this.
Yeah, thank you. And as that equation shift and as people change, we change our practices on how we buy software, something not everyone is used to this. And OpenAI put out a report last week that helps and confirms a bit of what we are seeing in our organization. You have a group of people that they call frontier workers that are using AI much more than anyone else. And obviously they are talking about ChatGPT and their tool, but I see that as well as people that are not scared to try Builder IO, and they would take the tool, build something quickly in our sales team and show it to the rest of the team and say like, hey team, I built this in a couple of hours. Why should we buy this sales enablement tool? And that's when the conversation changes, because you go from um, trying to buy a piece of software that might cost 60 or $50,000 a year into, well, we could solve the problem with a much more efficient and much faster iteration. Um, and those roles, those people are not the common denominator. They are a small subset of um, the teams, but that's the type of role that is going to change the composition. It's going to change your ability to make fast decisions. So our view and our position as an organization here is the more frontier workers you have in your team, the faster you're going to be able to make decisions, and the faster you're going to be able to change and adopt new practices instead of sticking with the old build versus buy and then potentially fail to implement a tool that didn't really fit your needs. Um, and if you go to the next slide, we're going to talk about two different verticals, or two different um, ways to look at these tools. One is the internal teams, how we use the tooling internally, and how we use it to build our product, because that's an important distinction, but it's key, in my view, to use it for both. We don't only want the citizen developers. My team, as a CTO, I want my team to work faster. I want my team to work better, um, and to deliver higher quality based and fast iteration. So the citizen developers, Kara is gonna go into details on how we get more people to contribute with less bottlenecks on the engineering and product teams, which I love because my team is not at the bottleneck anymore, but also how our product team is now getting out of the mindset of you have the classic way of looking at software development is that you have three variables that you can control. One is scope, the second is time, So, and the last one is how many people you have to solve the problem. And usually, if you add scope, you have to reduce, you have to increase the time or increase the number of developers you have. But with Builder, what we found is that you can create higher quality with more detail with the same amount of resources and faster than you did it before. So that equation with those three very strong variables that you couldn't shift is changing and it's expanding. So using this tool like Builder allowed us to break a bit that mindset and get into a more agile mindset that we will go into detail later on.
Amazing. So, G, a question just came up, which I think is relevant, and so we can either answer it now or park it, but it's definitely for you. So, someone asked, like, how is our engineering team reacting? The person said we've had issues where the engineering code feels generated as subpar, so it makes sense for our initial lightweight change design versus production-ready code. Is that your experience as well?
It is a process. Change is hard, and the important what we found in our experience is that we have to give the tools the the instructions, right? So early on, we had a lot of trouble with, well, this code, not only with Builder, but Cursor, any AI generated code there was a lot of dissatisfaction because either the tool didn't follow our best practices or the linters were complaining a ton. And now we have these agents, markdown agents, agent.md or different files that are giving instructions to the agents that are building the software. And that has reduced significantly. Um, I'm not saying the code is perfect. There will need to be, and I always say this to my team, these tools are making you more productive, but everyone needs to read the code and needs to be very critical to what's coming into our code base. This is just as in the old days when people copied code from Stack Overflow and pasted into their code base. It's the same thing, but 100 times more, 100 times faster. So it's key that the senior engineers are able to look at the code and instruct the tools to give them the output that they need. It doesn't always work perfectly. That's where the role of the engineer, of the senior engineers, come into a very, very important, they play a very, very important role. It is a very good question, and I'm not going to pretend the code is perfect, but it saves a lot of time. And the other element is the human aspect, right? Of like developers sometimes have um, want to protect their code and their environment, and there is resistance to change. But it takes a bit of time to get over it, but it is possible.
Yeah, great. G, it's so funny. G and I talked about that this morning, that exact sort of cultural shift that's happening at the organization. So we're gonna go through a few more slides and then let's go back and answer some of the Q&A because I see some stuff pulling up. So we're going to handle the citizen developer vein of this. And again, like for those of you that are deeply technical, this isn't necessarily for you, but it's also important for you to know how to bring up the entire organization, right? It is so important that we can shift that build versus buy tooling and put it into the hands of citizen developers. So here's how we did it. This is like, pulling back the curtain and telling you like how we were very intentional about building out citizen developers and bringing AI as sort of a general concept into DealMaker. So what we decided to do was create a guild. We thought over the 1 year project that we're doing, this innovation project that we're doing, that we would have two guilds. The first guild would be about the first half of the year, and the second guild we figured out based on sort of the reaction to the first. But I think it's so important. That first guild was grassroots, meaning non-technical people. They were citizen developers, truly. They were from our community. We had people apply. It was everyone for like, sort of a junior entry level employee all the way up to a director, but not beyond a director. We wanted to make sure that their mandate was met, and their mandate was to find opportunities, to make it accessible to people, to champion experimentation, be a strategic catalyst, be a practical accelerator, but not one where we had, engineers leading it. That was very intentional for us. Less about making, AI feel comfortable for people, but making it feel accessible. We also, of course, put it, we did a bunch of rituals. We did monthly things where you could do a show and share. We had prizes. We had the CEO give like a sentiment score at the beginning because it was difficult to sort of like put a real KPI and track against it. But what was so important was that we made sure it felt like a catalyst. But we also knew that that moment would end, and then we needed to get into the transformation phase. And that transformation phase was when we assembled a new guild. So it's 5 people this time nominated. Majority of them have, are newer hires and have the word AI in their actual job description, in their job title. So we've acknowledged it from like moving it from crowdsourced into strategic. And the goal of the main directive of that guild is to build these frontier workers. So thank you, OpenAI, for giving us that term. We're looking for them to build as a collective average across DealMaker frontier workers. And those are the people that are heavily using AI. And these don't have to be technical people. It's the entire, employee or team-based team members at DealMaker. And the first mission that we gave them was a hackathon. So in that second guild, they built a hackathon, and G's going to walk you through how that went. Oh, no, I'm going to say something first. Apologies. Okay. So just from a people function, which is what I run at DealMaker, there's just like it's important for us to think about, what are these big operational culture shifts that are happening? The truth is like, for example, OpenAI releases something every 3 days. No one can keep up, right? It's fundamental that we understand like the shift that's happening both in the employee base, but also like the speed that the thing is happening. And so it is recognized across all of the big AI people, organizations that in fact the internal organization, like the organizational ready and implementation is the bottleneck, right? So the tools are amazing. We're upskilling everyone. The fact that, DealMaker needs to figure out how to deploy this into our, community of team members is the actual bottleneck. So there's a couple of tips and tricks. So the first one is like, we got to live and breathe it. I had to sit there. I'm like, I've got to tinker with it myself. I've got to build something so I can understand what this means so that I can then lead this rock. So an example on the right is something that I built. It was Notebook LM into a gem using Gemini, and then had a Builder IO sort of interface on top of it, but just to show that anyone can build it. So from a leadership perspective, we needed to bake it into our DNA. We needed to show our teams that we're serious about this. It's non-optional, and then I'm going to do it myself. I'm not just going to talk about it. I'm actually going to do it myself. So we also asked every single leader of every single department head that they have to set goals to get their team to be in what we call the transformational run phase of AI literacy. And what that means is, it's that you're using AI not just as a tool, but to rethink strategy. It has to deliver value. AI literacy is now a core competency across the entire organization. We have it in our performance reviews. It's non-optional, as a lot of famous people have said, but we have baked it into the everyday. So we made sure it was accessible through the guild, and then making sure that people understand that it is our new operating rhythm. So now I will pass it on to the hackathon, and G's going to walk us through how that went.
Thank you. Thanks, Car. So the hackathon was we organized. Let me just take a step back. Given all this that Cara is talking about the citizen developer, the guild came out with the idea of spreading these across all our teams. So we decided to take one day of the full company, this is 140 people, to try to solve our most important problems and how do we our most important internal problems. And what we did is organize teams around and make a conscious decision to make teams um, interdepartmental. So no team would have only engineers or only marketing people. In this picture, you see people from 5 different departments. And we gave them 5 challenges. So 18 teams, 5 challenges. Every team had a coach. So the guild was coaching all of these teams, and we gave them the opportunity to try to solve the problem using Builder. And what we saw is nobody had an overrepresentation of the engineering team or the product team. So they had to do the product work even when they were not a product person. And they had to start thinking about how to solve the problems and build a product that solves those problems. And what we found is people really got into the role of a designer, of a product person. And the product people that were in the team had the opportunity to coach them into how to build a product, into how to build a user interface that really works for users. Um, and at the end, we had a presentation where everyone showed the rest of the team how they solved the problem. And given we had five teams working on the same problem, we saw kind of a crowdsourcing of solutions that we could amalgamate into a single solution that will make the best possible product for that. And we didn't throw away any of those projects. What we did is take them, select the ones that were the best, so we had prizes at the end, and took one of those. We already have one of those projects in production using day to day, and we're going to talk a bit more about that at the end. But I wanted to go through the mechanics of how this work. How do you select people in your team? How do you make sure there's cross pollination between different departments? And how do you crowdsource a solution instead of having a product team working in a silo, trying to figure out a problem and trying to iterate very slowly with stakeholders. Most teams used Builder.io in this solution, and they supplemented their products with, some of them had engineers, so they wanted to use Cursor and they wanted to integrate with AI backends. So we gave everyone Gemini API keys or OpenAI API keys, and we made it very, very simple. If you don't have data, it doesn't matter. Make AI generate you data so you can actually build something. If you don't have a connection to an external system, ask the AI to mock it up for you. And that's key to remove barriers, because the first thing people start thinking is like, oh, but I only have 24 hours. How am I going to build a connection with this system that someone is going to tell me I can't because compliance is going to say no? Just mock it up and we will figure out later. So reduce the barriers of entry as much as possible, and make it easy for everyone to contribute.
Amazing. Gee, so a couple of questions have come up, and so just the two people who've asked them, I think they're going to be great a few slides from now, so I'll prompt you then. But just wanted to warn you they're coming up.
Yeah, sounds good. If you go to the next slide, one of the biggest learnings we've had in the last few months is, along with the shift in the build versus buy into build, learn, buy, is there is so much vertical software right out there trying to solve very specific problems. There is software for sales, there is software for marketing, there is software for operations, and some of them don't really solve the specific problems of your organization. Of course, many of them do. Like GitHub is a perfect example. You don't need to rebuild a GitHub. That's something that engineering teams are very used to. But in our case, we have a very special blend of services and software and platform. Um, and we found that going with tools, horizontal tools that you can use to solve wider problems really helps reduce the software overhead and test your assumptions. Builder is a great example. We have many processes that are services teams trying to put together creative to then QA it to then launch a deal into within the constraints of a SaaS platform that we sell, of a software platform. And there is no software out there, vertical software that is going to solve that problem. We're going to have to buy something more horizontal, like Builder, like N8N is another excellent example of something that people can use to solve problem across the organization. And then there are and the choice is how deep you want that tool to be in the technical spectrum. It could be non-technical at all. Anyone can use them. To well, there some of them are pretty technical, and you need engineers to run it, and you need engineers to solve that problem. But my view on this is that in many cases require more horizontal tool than a vertical one that we're very used to find in the market right now.
Yeah, amazing. Why don't I hit you with one of the questions? And
Yeah.
then we've got a few that are up there. So if these other departments are building apps in Builder.io, how are you hosting them at DealMaker for all other employees to access the app?
Excellent question. Yeah. So it's very important to have the infrastructure in place for this. And for different reasons. In our case, we operate in a highly regulated space, so we need our applications to be hosted within our infrastructure. So what we are doing is building the guardrails and the infrastructure people need to safely deploy these applications so they can communicate with our data within the boundaries of our cloud environment. So it's great that you can quickly check that the application is working through Builder. What we do then is take those applications, deploy them into our own infrastructure so they can use the data, and we don't have any concerns about data flowing into places that we don't want it to. So it's important that not only you have developers that can work with these tools, but also an infrastructure team that can quickly build a framework. So people can put these applications into the specifics of your cloud environment. In our case, Kubernetes, get them in Dockerized and into our own Kubernetes environment, so we don't worry about them running in the wild, so to speak. So that's a really good question. It's top of mind for me. It's been for a while since all these toolings are popping up. I'm more worried. My approach has been how do I give instead of don't do it because it's not within our infrastructure. How do we give these teams the framework to do that?
Love that. All right.
This is some of you might be familiar with this, but what I wanted to show is this is how the traditional product development life cycle used to work. You have an idea, the idea goes into shaping, mock-ups, feedback, Jira epics, and it could take so much time between idea and real feedback that there is a huge disconnect. And by the time people are looking at what they thought would be implemented, They probably don't even remember what problem we're trying to solve. So and this is shifting from the internal tooling into the product development lifecycle. What we've done is change this process, and instead of having all these serial steps, now in the after Builder IO, if you go to the next slide, Kara, the feedback loop is much shorter, right? So and something that I didn't mention before, but I think it's also really relevant to one of the previous questions on how do you ensure that the code that is coming out aligns with your needs is we have a design system in our main application that we use to quickly create new components, and that design system is into our builder setup. So whenever someone is creating new elements into their UI, they are coming out looking like our UI because it's using all the components that we have already built in our stack. We use a SvelteKit, and we have a lot of these components already readily available. So when a product manager or a designer are iterating on ideas and running through this live prototype instant feedback loop, they are seeing the app as it would look with our components. And that's where we are right now, when the in that cycle, running that cycle of prototyping, feedback, iteration much faster, producing code that can be used to actually go into our main code base in a much more efficient way. Historically, designers work in Figma, product managers work in Google Docs. Everyone is working on something different. That's conversion into tools that allow for rapid prototyping. There is still a document. There is still Figma, but they can change it much faster than before, and that's increasing the velocity at which we produce and tinker with ideas.
Amazing. So should we hit up a couple of questions? I think maybe Steve and I can do this. Yeah. Hit up a couple of questions before we hit outcomes. So question that came from anonymous attendee, who should be responsible for the code, the non-technical folks who built it or the engineers? If you had to answer that in a simple way.
It depends. I think it depends. For the product development life cycle, the engineers are responsible for the code 100%. For application, it depends on the specific case, but I'll give you an example where engineers have nothing to do with the tool. We've built a sales enablement tool in our organization, and was built by a marketer. The marketer is responsible for the code. The infrastructure team is responsible for where it's hosted and how we deploy it within our infrastructure. But I don't think the engineers should take their attention out of the product development lifecycle in this case, because it's a tool very specific for sales enablement, and the person that built it can maintain it. Should they hit a roadblock? Of course, engineering could help, depending on the priorities of the team, of course, but it depends on the case, case by case. In the product development life cycle, engineers will be responsible, and they have the last saying on if the code is good enough to be used by to put into our application, and they are willing to maintain it, of course. In the case of the citizen developer that is doing something very specific for their team, they should be fine maintaining their application.
This is what
Amazing.
we've seen across the customer base. This is a pretty common pattern as well. So looking at other customers, exactly what you're saying, G, is exactly the pattern we see. So two big buckets, saying the same thing you're saying, but Bucket one is like real production software, engineers own 100%. It's not uncommon to get a pull request from a non-technical person and be like, you know what, you changed too much. I don't like this change. Thanks for the prototype. We see how you want it. We'll take it over from here. We'll throw this away. We'll do it ourselves. Great outcome, in my opinion. You know exactly what's wanted to extremely high fidelity, but engineers will re-implement. At the same time, technically our merge rate right now is 87%. So 87% of pull requests actually do get merged and go to live customers. So that's more the edge case, but totally happens. A lot of the other ones are smaller ones. And a best practice generally is like send small pull requests, make small changes iteratively. AI tends to do those better and they're easier to review. You can use our GitHub bot or use your own preference of bot to say like what feedback you want to get the PR in good shape. But then, yeah, there's the whole other bucket of just like tools that engineering doesn't need to care about. Great, rock and roll, do whatever you want. And it was an interesting point you both made earlier about sometimes the end result of that is it becomes productionized. So maybe the end result is like engineering will own this and we'll collaborate through pull requests and the code matters more and it'll be scrutinized. Another outcome could be throw it away entirely. We're going to buy software for this, but we know better what we want. And I won't ramble on this deeper, but maybe, Carl, should I take this big, thick question? I think I could summarize it down. It's a technical one for G2.
For sure. We might be looking at different. I'm looking at one that's around career direction, which I'm definitely like interested in. But yeah, which one? Yeah, go for it.
Yes, I actually don't even see the career one. But
Oh,
I do, let me, oh yeah, sorry, we're talking about the same one, but
okay.
this one's long. I was thinking I would just summarize it down a little bit. And the question's asking, it's pointing out that, gee, you had mentioned that senior engineering role is critical. And the question's asking, what about junior engineers? A super common question, which is like, hey, AI can do a lot of junior engineering work. So does the future become a world where only senior engineers are valued? And what do you do with junior engineers? I have thoughts on this, but I'd love to hear yours first too.
Yeah, I think uh, this is something that has been on my mind as well for a while, and I don't think the junior engineer comes with a big advantage over the senior one, and is that they don't have a bias, right? So I don't think the role of the junior engineer disappears. Is going to change dramatically, right? And it's going to change. And the challenge, I think, for engineering teams to avoid this situation where we don't have more senior developers because we ran out or they are retiring is giving the space to these junior engineers to learn and creating the environment where they can level up, develop the skill set to be critical about what's coming out of these tools much faster than they would before. We have a range of seniority in our teams, from staff engineers to more junior ones, and we make a lot of emphasis on be critical of the code, think about it, and ask questions before you accept what's coming out. And that's how I'm thinking about it. Create the environment for these people to develop the different skill set that they would develop over a long period of time.
Yeah, that's generally sort of the way we've seen it too. I think, I will totally admit there is a point where I was actually worried, like, holy moly, yeah, maybe this is a real long-lasting issue because, yeah, you're just like, people who are developers generate AI code and the senior developers review it and where is the junior role? I think you nailed it, G. And I think that maybe the other way to put it too is when people think of junior engineers, they think of them a certain way, which is in a pre-LLM or advanced AGI world. Junior engineering was taking the very small tasks that you generally give to AI now. I think the past can be very different. So something we've seen in Builder, like the Builder platform's been around for like 6 years, even before chatbots and LLMs. We were doing a drag and drop interface that lets you update large scale, whatever website or tech stack you have. And one pattern we noticed ubiquitously was we were selling this product as like, look, a marketer can update the marketing website and the whoever can update whoever. You know what that a lot of them ended up doing? Just delegating it to a junior developer. Like, hey, you do it because the junior developer is kind of the person who gets in the weeds, figures it out. Why is this not responsive exactly the way I expected? There's platforms like Webflow that they're drag and drop based, but they started calling people who make Webflow websites Webflow developers because it's the same skill set. Just get in the weeds, get in there, figure out why these things aren't behaving right. And I think personally, the future of junior development becomes like, hey, there's the things you don't need any development skills to do with AI. There's the things you need more development skills, and that's where you delegate those to the junior developer. You'll delegate those types of problems of like, why is this not working right? They go into the code, like, oh, I see. They're doing lightweight debugging. Like you said, G, they're making sure the quality's there. Like maybe the problem is it just derailed. Sometimes AI will do some silly thing, and then it compounds. It when it generates kind of bad code, that code can become kind of the new source of truth, and it just repropagates the same bad patterns. You don't need a senior developer to catch that. Writing, DOM manipulation in React, that's just bad. They can catch it. And then the senior developer obviously can do the more senior things. If we believe in this world, which I think we do, where the amount of software will proliferate, which increases the value of senior developers, we're just going to run out of senior developers. So where do you get more senior developers? You start bringing it down to the junior developers, and they get in there and they start learning up. And I think that's how it goes personally.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, every single function and department is thinking the exact same thing, right? Legal, HR, everyone is like, what's going to happen with the entry level? So, yeah, I think the answer is very appropriate and the same answer. The work will be fundamentally different, accelerated in a lot of ways. It's exciting time.
100%.
Okay, great. So one last tactical question for you, G, and I don't want to leave Scott hanging here. Does everyone in the company now have a GitHub account?
Not yet, not yet, but it's expanding. The number of people is expanding rapidly. And there are more people every day asking for a Builder account, a Cursor account, a GitHub account. So yeah, it's growing. And Scott also made a comment on hosting apps. That's yeah, it's precisely that point of like getting your things organized is the infrastructure piece that I was talking about, right? It takes a different mindset to solve that problem, but it's fun, it's interesting, it gives people, it empowers your teams, which is how I see it.
Yeah, and I love what
One
Stacey
thing.
said. I guess the take home is that there needs to be a conscious and deliberate strategy to manage. Yes, not
Yes.
only about like just this specific thing, but also about the broader, sort of leadership mandate around doing this well and consciously within an organization.
One
Awesome.
thing we've
Okay.
seen as well, or go ahead, Cara.
Oh no, please. All you.
I was just going to briefly mention one thing that comes up too is like the nature of work, even for that senior developer. And I think what's really interesting in this world is, G, you talked about the architecture again on like, hey, you made it so that people can vibe code or AI code, citizen developers can code, but it still runs through your infrastructure. That's something we care deeply about and something we've seen as customers look at like, how do we scale citizen developers? It starts moving engineers from a little bit less of day-to-day tasks, move this button, change the color, to architectures, to how do we build a system that scales and we can populate new applications and have shared infrastructure that replicates effectively. And what I've always found in my career is that's what engineers like to do. That's what they're suited for. When you give a senior engineer, a ticket to change a button color every day, they get a little bored. When you give them meaty architecture challenges that worry about scale and complexity, it's interesting. So a lot of this offloads the things that are not complex to citizen developers and lets engineers focus deeper on the complexity, tends to be happier all around. Obviously, there's learning curves and every company has to figure it out, but there's interesting nuances there too.
Amazing. So Steve, Sam asked if there's going to be a walkthrough of the actual platform. I'll leave that with you if you want to do it. G and I can finish out our two slides and leave that with you.
I have nothing specifically prepared. I think the best reply to Sam is we have other live streams that you should join coming up that will have that. And we have some you can look back on YouTube. We'll probably send a link with more info in general. Maybe we can squeeze in if we have time, but I think we can get through more questions and discussion given the main focus of today's topic.
Great. Okay. So, we always want to, we do this at DealMaker and we should across the world always like, what are the actual outcomes, right? KPIs are interesting. What actually happened? I would say, what's the thing we can hold in our hand? So from the citizens developer, so that was the output of the hackathon. Again, the majority of our team, actually, when you look at our employee population, our team member population, it's actually more heavily weighted towards professional services. So just to give you an idea, the hackathon, yeah, was maybe 25% sort of from the engineer, 25, 30%, but the rest of the team was constituted from non-technical people. Very important, especially when we just gave them one day to turn it around. And so again, like G said, we had 18 like 18 projects that were production ready, fundamentally different than a prototype or just an idea or proof of concept. They were production ready. And we just did the hackathon like maybe 2 weeks ago. Already one of the projects are live. It's in use with real data. So that's a huge win. It just went to our Blitz team and they spun it up fairly quickly. So G's going to talk next about like, how much effort it took to take from where it was to where it got to. But overall, again, in that citizen developer vibe, there was way less time spent, right? Way, way less time spent. And it's so important that we also 10x the amount of people who could do things at the organization. So if you think about a 10x on a 10x, like it's an exponential growth that we saw live happening. And we're just so deeply proud of what happened. So yeah, we 10x'd everyone became a citizen developer and the entire team was upskilled through a day's effort. So huge change. We could not have accomplished that any time in history before now. So I'll leave it with G to close this out.
Well, and to add to the previous citizen developer approach topic, the as I said, we're in a highly regulated environment, and whenever you launch a fundraise process, there are hundreds of checks that need to happen. Like, are we complying in our website? Is the website that is promoting the deal compliant? Is our documents well formatted? Is the price per security right? And there are 5 or 6 teams involved. The winner of the hackathon was able to build a tool that took all that process and brought all that data into a dashboard that now the person in charge of QA enters the deal ID, and 60 checks come into the screen saying this is right, this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong. Now no one has to go over all those things manually across those 5 teams. So it's a huge improvement. And on the product development life cycle, these are estimates, right? But I think we have at least a process that used to take 10 days to go over Figma Figma iterations, product shaping, feedback, and back into shaping to then go into development has reduced from 5 days to a day, from 10 days to a day, to the point we used to do shaping throughout the quarter, the second half of the quarter, and we have compressed that to 5 days or a week and a half, where we gather all our product leaders, our engineering managers, and tech leads, and do all that fast iteration in a single week. And they are able to explore more ideas now, because you don't have to go through the whole process as much as before. And this is saving us hundreds of hours that they now can spend on exploring new things, gathering, rolling things out, because things still need to be rolled out, measured, tracked, and all of that. So product managers can now use that time on something else and really getting things out into the hands of our customers, and bringing that feedback back into our teams.
Okay, there's a couple of really good questions for you. Have you stopped using Figma altogether? Do you design directly on code using Fusion or something similar?
No, we are still using Figma, and we have them connected.
Yeah. And then how and where do you maintain your design system in Fusion, Storybook, or Code?
We have Storybook and we have Code, and the approach we have taken right now is we took our design system and put it into a lightweight repo that we can load into any. Our code base is massive, but not massive, but it's 8 years of code. And the approach we took is extract the design system into a separate repo, and that's what we use as a template for fast shaping and prototyping. We do have Storybook as well. Find it really useful for people still to look at what is available and how can it be tweaked. So yeah, that's the approach.
Amazing. Okay, so why don't we wrap up with our blueprint for leaders and then see if any more Q&A come through. Okay, so to sum this up, right? The thesis that we had and we wanted to share was from a thought leadership perspective, from a leadership perspective, like how are we bringing in and thinking about sort of AI transformation in the organization? So the steps that we just went through, 1 and 2, I'll say 3 through 6, G owns. So really, it's like aligning leadership on an AI first mandate. That might seem really simple. Please don't skip that stage. Be specific about what that looks like. Like I said, per department, per function, we laid out what it looked like to crawl, then walk, then run for every organization. And we gave ourselves exactly 12 months to get to that run state or transformational state per function. So that looks like, again, using AI strategically within each department and being thoughtful about using it as a collective organization. So fundamentally, don't just say, let's slap AI on things, be intentional and conscious about it. And the second one, which G and I have been working for through various programs, is really to engage that team, right? So again, we've set performance goals and it's baked into our performance reviews, right? You are now you are now, assessed on whether or not you have increased your AI literacy to the point that we expect for your level role, etc. We started a guild. Right, that was our way. We did 2 guilds. We did one intentionally. That was a citizen-based one, and then this next one that's in flight. We focused on people who have AI in their title. We expect them to guide us through into this transformation phase. And then we obviously we did a company-wide hackathon, and thank you for Builder for supporting us during that.
Yeah, and well, the third step is getting the tools in the hands of your teams, for non-technical teams. For um, we have given them different tools. Builder is was key for the hackathon, as Oli said. For the more engineering team, they also have Cursor. They have GitHub Bot. They use Gemini and different things. Um, so they can really get their hands dirty and understand what works for what. Um, Fourth, obvious but really important, get those projects into production, get them to use. So the hackathon participants feel motivated by seeing their projects working. Um, Measure, right? Um, there is a lot of hype around these tools, but it's important to measure and understand what's the output you're getting from all this investment. Because at the end, we're running businesses. We need to make sure that the investment we're making on these tools is having a return, um, and repeat it. Go back, measure the return, go back, run. Maybe not a hackathon, maybe something different, but keep doing it. And last but not least, build the guardrails and the governance around all this process. It's important to keep your data safe, keep your infrastructure safe, but not at the expense of like not um, limit your team's ability to move fast. So important to stay ahead of it, and know that those questions are going to come up. The question of like, should we be deploying this um, in the default environment is going to come up, and you have to have your support teams prepared to solve those questions. So this is a very the first stage is very strategic, but the rest is very tactical, right? So we wanted to walk you all through this.
Great.
Amazing. Why don't we do this? I have a final kind of question or two. We have another minute where if people want to add additional questions. But the thing I'm really curious, Kara and G, is where do you see the future going? Like we talked a lot about like practical tips right now today, results, framework, etc. Where would you imagine, where do things go, call it 3 years from now? Maybe that's even too hard to predict because who knows what OpenAI is going to release in the next 6 months. Even 2 years from now, how do you see this extrapolate further? And is there anything that you think is sort of like crazy future scenarios that you actually think are pretty real and interesting at all?
I'm going to let G predominantly take this one, but it was that last point on that last slide, right? We're entering into this wonderland moment. And the next thing is we need to get really serious about the governance and guardrails of this thing. So again, there's this concept of, yes, citizen developers, but it's often tied with a term called 1,000 flowers. And 1,000 flowers effectively means like you're planting a whole bunch of things simultaneously. You don't actually know what's going to bloom, but it can be complete chaos after, right? So there's a lot of like really smart people in the world who are like, we're in this very bloom phase, but we do need to be conscious about it. And so again, as G and I move the organization through this like, expansive moment, we also are conscious that, it needs to make business sense. It needs to be, with governance and guardrails to make sure this thing sticks and is useful. Otherwise, what we're going to end up with, from my perspective, is a bunch of tools that the cost increase, sort of like, at some point uncontrollably. And we've got a bunch of like, land of misfit dolls of these like various tools that don't talk to each other. So we know that's the next sort of like required phase of this, but like I just don't want to leave the playful moment that we're in now and this huge opportunity. I don't want to diminish innovation or diminish the ability to build out citizen developers and for people in non-technical roles to not solve their own problems. I think it is a massive win for careers, for our company, for everything.
One thing I've seen just on that note, and people talk about this too, is like with the right rails, you can even move faster, not slower. Like if you know you're safe to move at unlimited speed is because you have the structure around you to support you. I think that's maybe the dream state. So I think you're right. Like with it's something we invest heavily in, build it into the product and the platform and all of that. If you can build those rules and walls so you know that you can move, anybody can move at any speed and it will be safe. I think that's the dream, and you get faster, not slower, but maybe slow in the short term. Or I like how you put it, explore fast now, then add the infrastructure to have governance, and then maybe continue to move lightning speed after. I'm curious, G, your point of view on all this stuff too.
Yeah, look, I think the technology will keep evolving. It's I try not to predict because I know it's a game we can't win. And our position as a leadership team is, instead of predicting, being world-class reactors in this environment. But I think the technology will keep evolving, and the teams that adapt and build those frameworks to continue moving at a higher speed, as long as the ROI makes sense, the sky's the limit, right? You're going to have teams that can solve their internal problems with, and it's that scenario where you have companies building much more with less people and creating incredible shareholder value. I think that is an outcome that we could see in a few years. Um, but again, there are questions around like the cost of building, the cost of deploying, the cost of the return on that investment. But I'm optimistic, and I think that this space will keep evolving, and companies that are able to build a framework will get ahead.
Amazing. I'm totally on the same page. Well, this is perfect timing. We're just at our limit. If for anybody who missed it, you can talk to the builder team or DealMaker scanning those QR codes. We'll send a follow-up email with the recording, additional links, all this stuff. Giancara mentioned a hackathon we help sponsor on their side. We've been doing hackathons, workshops, and others with other companies, so reach out to us. Otherwise, Karji, thank you so much. This was amazing. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate your insights and your actionable frameworks. It was incredible.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, and thanks everybody for joining. Catch you next time.